that's what we have to decide going forward is where do we invest our time and our money at our age.
Right. I mean, my wife's idea is sell the house and hit the road.
She's got a good idea.
I know. If I had your job instead of a service job, right?
Yeah, it's not as easy to get those work from home gigs as it used to be. Just getting a job at my age.
Dude, you had that. I don't know how you didn't take advantage of it.
Take advantage of what?
The freaking liberty of being able to freaking chime in from work from wherever you were. You could be like Robbie in freaking Amsterdam and still doing your job.
Last year we went to the Cape, we went to Vietnam, we went to Florida, and we went to Virginia. What do you mean I didn't take advantage of it?
Oh, I guess you did that.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we could work on the road.
Right.
Yeah, we took the laptops and, you know, during the day we'd work and then,
Now she could
later
do
on
that
the
at her
time
job too.
she could do it for her job too. Yeah. They like her in the office a couple days a week, but doesn't have to be, if she wants to go for, 1 week and not and work from home, it's not a problem. We
Yeah.
couldn't do it in Vietnam, but all the other ones we did.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, the only thing that kind of screwed you up is the unemployment trying to do it from Vietnam.
Yeah, you can't do it from outside the country. So
Yeah.
I lost a couple of weeks of unemployment.
Yeah.
I was planning on, I didn't know if I was going to still be working or not when I scheduled that, and I just turned out that right before we went on that trip, contract ended and they didn't have any other work. So
You got to roll the dice, dude.
yeah,
If you put your life on hold all the time, you never get anywhere.
that's why we just said the heck with it. We're just going to do it. Unemployment, you get 6 months worth, so that just means if I'm out of work for 6 months, it's just going to get pushed out a little bit further. It won't end as early.
Right.
And I got some vacation pay when my project ended. I had some that I was saving up for the trip, so I got that pay. So it wasn't like I didn't get anything. I had a few weeks pay that they gave me in my last check.
I don't think you're allowed to collect while you're getting.
No,
Right. You have to claim it all.
you have to be ready to work.
Right. Yeah, but I'm saying even your vacation pay from your previous job or whatever, you're supposed to report that as income.
I did.
No,
I
I know.
reported everything. I'm not sure they didn't. uh, I'm not sure what the rules are for that. They call you and talk to you, and then they decide when you can start collecting. And so because I went on vacation like the week after I got laid off, it just ended up that way. But
So did you hear my wife chumming up RV life with Louie?
I got that conversation started.
Oh, okay.
When we pulled up, she looked at your RV and she's like, "Oh wow, that's their trailer." And I said, "Yeah, that's it." And then so I figured after dinner, let me get her outside and take a look at it. And so
She did.
I got Debbie out there to give her the tour.
Oh yeah, she could have been happier.
She liked it. Yeah, that's the thing with Mui is I have to get things in front of her a lot of times. I can't just
Talk about it.
explain something to her. She has to experience it.
Yeah. She was, I guess, impressed with how much room was inside it.
Yeah.
She does.
When we were down in Florida, we went to my cousin's, and he lives in it's kind of like a not an RV park. It's mobile homes, right? But there are RVs there too.
Okay.
and there happened to be one just a couple doors down that was for sale,
Okay.
and you have to rent out the space that it's sitting on. And the way they were doing it down there is they were going to charge you a fee just to have the right to rent it, right?
Oh,
So you're going to pay like 50 grand for this used trailer, right? It's a fifth wheel and it's just sitting there, and then you pay the annual fee, which is about 9 or 10 grand, um, for to rent the land underneath of it, right?
yeah. Which is probably not much land.
Right. But then there was an empty lot right across the street from them where they wanted twice as much. And I'm like, I'm gonna pay 100 grand for an empty lot so I can spend 10 grand. Why can't I just go to the RV people and say, hey, I want to rent a lot from you, and give them the 10 grand? Why do I have to pay the extra 100 for the right to do that? That's the part I was trying to figure out. Nobody could seem to really explain that to me. So
They wanted another 100 grand.
right, the people that were already renting that spot had nothing on there. Probably got wiped out in the last hurricane, whatever was there.
Right.
And instead of putting something new there, they just wanted to sell the right to rent that spot, and they wanted $100,000 just to get the right to rent that spot. And I'm like, maybe they have some empty spots that nobody's on now, and I can just rent those. Why would I pay 100 grand for an empty spot? At least the one across the street, I'm paying 50 grand. I'm getting a trailer out of it. you know?
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, and it's on Sanibel Island, right? So it's a pretty nice spot to be. Although
Right.
it's not on the water, it's in the center of the island. And even in the center of the island, these guys got flooded out. So I mean, that Sanibel is like right on the ocean.
Yeah. You got to have the resources to bounce back. Otherwise, you flounder out there.
Yeah.
You know.
There's an island a little bit more. It's it's kind of like you got Sanibel. The Gulf is on that side of Sanibel, and then on this side of Sanibel is Florida, and in between there's an island called Pine Island. And on the end of Pine Island, closest to Sanibel, is a little town called St. James. And I like that spot because you're kind of right near Fort Myers, um, but you're away from it. You're not dealing with all that traffic. I don't know if you've driven around Florida. You know how the traffic can be in Florida. It's bad, right? But this island is separated from that. You know,
Mm.
you have to go across a bridge. You go through this little like artsy fartsy little town, and then you go on this road that takes you all the way to the other end of the island, and that's where St. James is. And there's a whole little town there, and there's got their own grocery store and everything. So it's kind of self-contained. You don't have to leave that area to do your normal day-to-day stuff. But if you want to go into town, it's 30 minutes, you know, to get to Fort Myers and Fort Myers Beach. So I'm like, Moe, why don't we live in a place like this where we're not dealing with traffic every single day, every time we want to do something, rather than living, in all that. When I was at my sister's, every time you went somewhere, you were in a traffic jam, right? But
Correct.
if you live on St. James, on Pine Island in St. James, you're separated from that,
Right.
and you get some peace and quiet,
Right.
and you're right on the water. You're on an island.
Right.
You get a house right there. You park your boat, and you can get on your boat, and in just a short time, you can be in Sanibel, right? It's just right across. It's right across that little bit of water.
Nice.
They're right next to each other. And she's like, "Well, it's so far, and I want to be able to, in a moment's notice, do whatever." Because she lives in Stanford, right? So she's got
Mm.
everything there, and she's used to just walking
For
out the door and she's right downtown, you know?
yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, but how often do you actually really take advantage of that? You
especially as
know,
you get older.
yeah, you don't need all that. And it's finally starting to, like the other day, she showed me, she likes to send me these things on her phone and saying, hey, take a look at this house or that house. And so I look at one and I'm like, this is St. James. Why are you sending me a house in St. James? She says, it's so pretty and it's right on the water. It's not on a canal and it's beautiful. And so I'm like, all right, I'm into it, So I took a look at it and I'm like, yeah, this is great. And the prices for these houses on the water in St. James are half of what they are when you live near town,
Okay.
you know? So you're in this nice quiet neighborhood, you're not dealing with all the traffic, and you're paying half the amount of money to have ocean access right outside your door. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Right.
You look for the spot that meets your needs and you buy it, right?
Right.
And then when you want to go to town, you go to town, you know? But how often is that? The grocery store is 10 minutes away. What else do you need, really, on a regular basis?
Yeah. It was like when I was on Block Island, same kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's not like you have to get on a ferry or something. There's a bridge that takes you right
I hear
across,
you. I hear you.
you know?
Even more convenient. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're
I
going to
remember
hopefully
shopping.
have a boat. So, I mean, even if there's an issue with the bridge, we'll just take the boat, go.
Yeah, I was just reminiscing with somebody about, you know, being out there and being invited as a guest to a beautiful house out there. That was the cat's meow.
Yeah.
You know, her father was some sort of engineer and, did well for the company and they rewarded him well. And
Good.
yeah, and she inherited that. And I get out there and I say to her, what are you having for breakfast? She says, cereal. I said, not while I'm your guest. I went down to the grocery store and started picking up some fresh fruit, made some,
Yeah.
fruity pancakes and treated her like a queen for inviting me out there,
Absolutely.
right?
You
Cooked
got
her
to.
steaks and lobster, and she never ate so well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just,
Remember we were out there with Neil?
yeah, it was great.
It is nice to be out there.
Yeah.
I remember doing the morning jogs. I would take off in the morning before you guys even got up, and I'd start jogging around the island.
Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. Of course, that's when I was a little younger.
Yeah. I mean, for me, we got the age difference. So Movie's pretty much retirement ready, and I've still got a few more years before I can actually do it. And it's just a matter of filling in those years with something. Because when I looked at my Social Security, I could make nothing for the next 5 years and still get the same amount of Social Security.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter what I do. I just got to keep working until I can actually put in and say, okay, I'm retired.
Right. You could work at Home Depot.
Yeah, I could do anything,
Right.
and it's just
What do you
I'd
want?
rather do something that I can get paid for, but it
Right.
doesn't have to be.
Right.
So, and it'd be nice if I could line up some kind of a job where I could just work from home and live anywhere. But um, I haven't seen. I can get those jobs, but they don't seem to last. They come to an end for one reason or another.
Right. Well, timing is everything, as you know.
Yeah.
Some days are better than others.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to cut you a little short tonight because I got to head in.
Sounds good.
All right.
I recorded about 15 minutes of this. I'll send you a copy of it so you can take a look.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.
Ciao.